and one we're very proud of is the now award-winning Living Stories Writing Prize. Writers aged 10 and up across all 14 Western Sydney LGAs respond to a writing prompt and enter either a poem or a short story into the competition for the chance to win their LGA. Each winner then goes on to compete for the overall prize. All winners and highly commended winners receive a cash prize. We would like to thank our partners, the James N. Kirby Foundation, Booktopia, Arab Bank and ACU for making that possible. During the April school holidays, we also run the Living Stories workshops in partnership with West Lit Libraries. So also a massive thank you to every Western Sydney library for helping organise those, for helping promote the competition and foster creative writing in their communities. Finally, the reason we're here today is to celebrate the winners and highly commendeds of each LGA whose writing has been published in this year's publication, The Other City. I would like to ask, how many writers do we have? What's your name? Welcome, Marcos. And what's the title of your piece today?
The Mer City.
The Mer City. I remember that one. I read that one. Congratulations. Would you like to tell us a little bit about what it's about?
It's about an underwater city that's discovered by humans that has mer people in it.
Amazing. And how did you feel when you heard that your work had been selected to be published in the book?
Very thrilled.
Excellent. Well, thank you for being here, and I'll let you read your piece. There is a camera in the corner, so you can either read to the crowd or to the camera. Thank you.
The Mer City. The sun shone brightly on the boat as I geared up, ready for another afternoon of pearl diving. As I made my way along the ocean floor, I felt eyes watching me. I looked around, nervous that it might be a shark. I saw a pair of eyes staring at me, back from behind a large coral. Suddenly, a glorious mermaid emerged. I always believed that mermaids were just a myth. I fainted from the shock and lack of air. Luckily, the mermaid carried me to the surface and saved my life. When I came to, we began to chat. The mermaid's name was Carla, and she explained that she lived in a mermaid city at the bottom of the ocean. I mentioned it must be nice to live in a city under the sea. Carla held my hand. Let me show you. Carla dived into the ocean, and I followed. Carla turned and blew a large bubble that surrounded me. She told me that I would now be able to breathe comfortably. I hesitated, then slowly breathed in. I was amazed that I could breathe underwater. I followed her all the way to the Mer City. I was stunned by the beautiful coral houses that rose like rainbow skyscrapers with apartments in them. The windows were made of shimmering mermaid glass. There are enormous fountains that sprayed air bubbles. Everything looked magical. How did you create this? How did your town create this? I asked in awe. Then she showed me a magical pearl that gives you anything you want. That night, I returned to land. When I went to the pub and got drunk, I told my friend Oakley about the magic pearl and the Mer City. Oakley laughed and thought I was going crazy. The next morning, I took Oakley to the Mer City with our diving equipment to prove it existed. We looked around in amazement at the Mer City. When no one was looking, Oakley stole the magic pearl. As we were leaving, the mer people realized the magic pearl was gone and used their powers to blow up the boat with Oakley and I in it. Carla used her powers to heal me. I could see the sadness in her eyes as she placed me on a piece of broken boat, pressed something cold and hard into my hand, then pushed me out into the ocean towards land. I floated for several hours till I got to shore of a magnificent beach. I lay there on the sand, devastated that I had lost my best friend, but grateful to have made it to shore. I slowly opened my hand to see what Carla had given me. It was a piece of mermaid glass from Mer City. Then and there I made up my mind that one day I would return to the beautiful Mer City.
Please introduce yourself. What's your name?
I'm Harrison.
And what is the name of the piece you are reading for us?
The Fortune Cookies message.
You're one of our overall winners as well, that's right. Congratulations. How did you feel when you heard the news that your work was going to be published, that you were one of the winners?
I was pretty happy, actually.
Well, congratulations again. So without any further talking from me, I'll let you read your piece.
Do not buy a settlement in the city you cannot see. Some fortune cookie, thinks Larry Miller, software engineer turned artist. What a load of blackmail. He looks around at the beautifully set up Chinese restaurant. The lanterns ablaze, the incessant chatter, the beautiful smell of Chinese food in general. At his table, where his mates have all finished eating and were content with their meal, avidly discussing their fortune cookies. He looks at his watch. 9:36 p.m. Do not buy a settlement in the city you cannot see. Larry silently debates this on his drive home. What does it mean? How did it relate to him? Doesn't matter, he thinks. Fortune cookie's only objective is to make you look like an idiot. But then a thought comes to him. He recalls the incident from 7 years ago. He remembers hitting the keys on the keyboard, writing the program that changed millions of lives forever. Stolen information, identity fraud. No, muttered Larry, his voice a bare, fruitless whisper. No, no, no. He unhinges himself from the topic and looks blankly out the window. The colours, the shades, the textures of earlier that day now obscured in darkness. As only an artist could, he observed the absence of this morning's natural earthly colours. Bottle green, coffee brown, sunflower cream. At around midnight, he had nearly finished a painting. A man saluting his house, his belongings, the life he worked tirelessly to build. Yet it still doesn't distract him from the guilt, the terror descending upon him that one day he would be found. Imagine the sentence, he thinks, hacking millions of people, a hefty fine, not to forget the possibility of imprisonment. Larry couldn't sleep. He sits on the balcony in his pyjamas, alone, gazing vacantly at the stars. The full moon shone, unchallenged in all its glory. The stars, glittering, followed suit. It was a cloudless night, but Larry wasn't worried about observing the night sky. After the huge data breach, he was a shell of what he used to be. He knew what the fortune cookie meant now. It wasn't a compliment. It was a warning sign. Not to be possessed by the city he couldn't see, the city no one could see, the sophisticated city that was the product of his own hungry, ambitious mind. The next morning, after having drifted off the previous night, he made a decision. He had what he suspected would be his last breakfast at his house. He had finally figured out the fortune cookie's warning. Not to become so fixated with your own guilt that you couldn't put it behind you. He walked outside to his car, saluting his house, his belongings, the life he worked tirelessly to build. Putting the key in the ignition, his foot on the accelerator, he followed the only path he now believed in, to justice.
So, hi, I'm Aditya, I'm 11, and I am this year's Parramatta LGA winner for the 10 to 12 category.
Congratulations, Aditya. Thank you for being here. What was the name of your piece?
So my piece was a short poem called The Doppelganger.
I remember that one. Yep. Well done. And would you like to give us a little snippet of what's it about before you read?
Okay, so the concept I had when I was writing The Doppelganger was I basically looked back to the past 2 years of pandemic that we'd had, and I thought about how different life was. And because this year's prompt was the other city, I guess the dots started to come together in this very unsettling way. And so my poem's about the city being a doppelganger of itself during COVID.
Incredible, thank you. Oh, enough from me. I will now invite you to read your piece. Thank you.
Thank you. I used to feign sickness to skive off school. Measles, flu, or headache, but just for a day. Now a far worse virus lurks everywhere, and there's no school to go to anyway. I used to have a good view of the city below. People, pets, prams, and cars. But now, as I look down, they all seem to be gone. I might as well be on the surface of Mars. Being at home was an excuse for playdates. At least, that's what I thought when I gave my friends a shout. But it seems that with lockdowns, I've hit a brick wall. Forget my house. They can't even come out. All semblance of the usual is well and truly gone. COVID's an evil queen who's upending my life. Her iron-fisted ruling must really end soon. Otherwise, the next few years will be nothing but strife. Worst of all is the fact that my city's on leave. It's left behind a sister, an evil empty twin. She's forced us into hiding while COVID roams the streets, utterly in control, commanding with a grin. It's almost like it's another world I live in, one utterly devoid of play, fun, or games. I just hope we can bring back our own city, or this doppelganger will let COVID fulfill its aims. Thank you.
My name is Toby Mannix. I came highly commended in the 10 to 12 age group.
Incredible, thank you, and thank you for being here. What was the name of your piece?
I just named it The Other City.
The Other City, easy. Well, I'll leave it as a surprise then, and I'll let you read.
I ran. The mutant crawled across the streets after me. Its eyes seemed to bore through me, piercing my skull. I dove through the door of my home and slammed it behind me. Edgetown was abandoned. Gas floated in the air like clouds I had never seen. Pipes snaked up into the sky like the dead vines on the sides of the factories. The plague had spread like mold, infecting everyone in the city. As far as I knew, I was the last survivor. As I sat on my tattered couch, I threw my gas mask off and thought about Final Falls. Final Falls was the last safe place left. Clouds filled the sky. The trees and plants were as green as a precious emerald. I had rain, the rain I had never seen before. The colossal gates were so big and strong that even the most powerful battering ram couldn't burst through. The best part of all was the waterfalls, clear as polished glass, but loud, like the heaviest rainfall in the land. I knew if I was going to survive, I would have to get out of town as soon as possible. I didn't waste any time, quickly packing a few essentials. By the time I had finished, the creature had left my front door. I knew it would still be close by, so I snuck out back. Running through the streets, I noticed a small, but swift and silent mutant that I knew I couldn't outrun. I sprinted to the closest building and started to climb one of the pipes. Making it to the roof, I began running across the rooftops before encountering another beast, one so large it could barely hold its own weight. I slid down a pipe on the side of the building and ran out the running gates into the wilderness. Dead trees surrounded me, releasing spores of the very same gas that started this mess. I traveled the old roads that led to Final Falls, now in disrepair. Potholes and tree roots threatened to trip me at every step. I walked for around an hour until I saw the next creature. It was small, and I knew I could kill it. I reached in my pack for my makeshift knife and ran towards the creature. It saw me only when it was too late. I had killed it. I kept traveling for the next few days, stopping only for short rests when I could find a safe place away from the path. I managed to avoid the few mutants that had strayed this far from the city until I saw the walls in the distance. Distracted by their sheer size, I didn't notice the small creature climb into my pack. I ran the rest of the way to Final Falls, and as the gates opened for me, the bulging sacs on the mutant's back burst, releasing gas into the city.
So my name is Leon.
Hello, Leon, and what's the name of your piece?
Just The Other City as well.
Excellent. And would you like to give us a little sneak peek, or would you like to dive into it about what your work's about?
Well, my work is about two different cities that were in the same area.
Yep.
But oh man, I don't know how to explain it. I guess they were merged into each other, and then they split out as two other different cities, I guess.
Sounds exciting. Can't wait to hear it. All right, after you, Luan.
Fire and rubble run all the way up to the horizon. Explosions and smoke block out what little sunlight come through the dusty clouds. The smell of fumes is like an iron hand gripping your throat and crushing your windpipe. The world has sunken into a ruined war zone as people fight for access to ever-diminishing food and fresh water. I took one more look at what used to be our beloved city before descending down to Zone 147, the underground city my grandson and I now call home. Residents of Zone 147 are usually not allowed above ground, but today was my birthday, and the chief couldn't say no to the wish of an 82-year-old man. As I rode the creaky elevator down to the city, I caught my grandson waiting at the bottom, looking up at me. His lonely eyes and awfully sad expression pierced my heart with such intensity it felt like it would crack in half. I got off the elevator, he took my shaking hand and led me to our underground blast-proof steel cabin. My grandson Jake guided me to my bed and helped me dress into my pajamas. It was only then that I realized it was 7 in the evening. I was exhausted and wanted to go to sleep, but I couldn't. The sight of the fiery red and volcanic black city above will haunt my dreams again. My grandson sensed something wasn't right. And I tried to brush him away, but he kept coming back, like a really, really annoying mosquito. Well, I couldn't lie to him. Grandson, you are only 9, so you have grown accustomed to the broken city that we are currently living in, I whispered hoarsely. But when I was your age, it was different. We had everything that was good. We had green grass, green trees, food and drink that were not rubbery, but juicy and satisfying. When I was your age, I would go out and listen to the birds sing and the animals purr. And the river. Grandpa, what's a river? Ah, I replied, a honey-sweet smile spreading across my face. It was the best. Think of a gorgeous sandy trench filled with crystal clear water. We had one that ran through my city, and I used to swim in it in the summer. Grandpa, what are trees? Aha, they were the best. Think of a natural wooden post, smooth and cool, and imagine placing a huge green pom-pom on the top. We used to have streets lined with trees and grounds covered by their colorful leaves and flowers. Grandpa, what is grass? Grass was the best. A sweet, soft carpet of natural evergreen. As far as the eye can see. We used to have parklands covered with grass. Grandpa, where is this miracle city? My happiness froze and my eyes darkened. Oh, well, this miracle city was right here, grandson. But back then, it was called something different. Back then, it was called Parramatta.
My name is Isabel Nguyen.
Isabel? Wonderful. And what's the name of your piece today?
My story is called A Grounded Heart.
A Grounded Heart. Congratulations on being published. I will let you read it. Thank you.
As plates were being thrown everywhere, 11-year-old Jack was hiding behind the curtains, away from his parents. Jack's parents fought over the smallest of things, and Jack had enough. After his parents calmed down, Jack pulled out his bag from under his desk and started to violently force all his belongings in it. Despite how heavy his bag was, Jack managed to heave it out of the window, but Jack lost his balance and fell too. The sound of Jack crashing to the ground made his mother look down from her bedroom. Jack stood still. His mother looked about, but then went back to cleaning off the smudged mascara around her eyes. Jack's first movement was a sigh of relief. He stood up and started sprinting into the forest. He ran for a few more minutes until he decided to take a break. Jack looked up, but instead of stars, he saw objects. Flying in the sky were tables, chairs, and even parts of houses. Jack was so astounded by the sky that he was oblivious to the small cliff ahead of him. Jack began to run again, still looking up at the sky. Suddenly, the ground under Jack's feet collapsed. Jack was about to dive headfirst into a revolting swamp. Fortunately for him, a table floated its way to him in time to catch him. Jack stood up and looked around. He was stunned by the levitating furniture. Jack pulled out a family photo and imagined his warm home, but right now he is shivering. Jack decided to go back home, but as he hopped off the table he was on, he realized he didn't know which way he came. Jack followed one path and it led to a town. As he walked further, he saw the old lion toy that he had lost. Suddenly, his heart started to beat faster. His mind told him to go forward, and it led him to a lake. "Hello, Jack." Jack turned around to see his grandfather. "You must be wondering why I'm here," he said in a serene voice. "Look around you. This town is starting to lose its bearings since you have left. You are the powerful attraction that brings your parents together." He stared at him with sorrow. "Well, what does that have to do with me?" Jack said, confused. "It turns out your parents want you back. You are the one that keeps the family together, since you pull your parents back together after each fight. Your heart has gotten stronger. Objects are floating around because your relationship with your family is dying, and this town will collapse if you don't go home." Jack nodded in confusion. He spoke again. "That means you have to go home now." Jack cried in regret. "I want to go home," he whispered. As Jack and his grandfather walked home, Jack could feel that in the distance, the old town would be all right. The end.
My name is Liana.
Liana, nice and close to the microphone, Liana. What's the name of the work that has been published?
Burger sauce can come in handy.
I remember that one. That was a fun one. Congratulations. Well, I won't ruin the surprise, and I'll invite you to read your work. Thank you.
Click, click, click. Noises come from my Xbox controller, getting louder as I drowned out the sound of the radio. I heard cars zoom past my building. The coffee machine went off with a great boom. "Are you kidding me?" my dad reluctantly announced. Still completely focused on my video game, I replied in a confusing manner. "What happened, Dad?" My dad angrily mumbled, "The coffee machine broke down again." Everything went back to absolute silence. It was 10:34 a.m. and I was tired. I didn't get enough sleep yesterday. Except before my nap, I brushed my teeth. But I thought I could get away with not brushing, so I decided I'd just put the toothpaste tube in my pocket, along with my brush, so I wouldn't forget to do it later. Then I took a nap. It was about 2 hours later, and I was suddenly floating in the sky with my bed. This is surely a dream, but no. There was a button on the side of my bed. If pollution and extinction are worse than me pressing the button, and those things are still alive, then me pressing it would be fine. Without hesitating, I pressed the button even without looking down. "Ah!" I screamed and opened my eyes. There were tomatoes, lettuce, and a lot of ham in the ground. Luckily, I had landed in a lettuce leaf before getting jump-scared by some goblin monster. I started brushing my teeth, but suddenly realized there wasn't toothpaste in my tube. It was burger sauce. "That's oddly strange," I mumbled to myself. It was strange because I coincidentally like lettuce leaves with burger sauce. At first, I thought it was kind of weird. Then I realized it would be an advantage, so my greedy little hands grabbed a piece of lettuce leaf and started munching and crunching until I was a human that was full as full could be. I got up and climbed out of the wet lettuce leaves with half-eaten leaves stuck to my back. I walked along the cheesy path and down the slide of grape juice. I knew it was grape juice because the gigantic sign said, "Wine is wine, time to fly. You love in a dime, say your last goodbye." In the Grapevine River. Those white words were repeatedly written on the sign, bigger than ocean pollution. Milliseconds later, I was screaming while sliding down a water slide, more like a grape slide. It was disgusting. By the time I got to the bottom home, I woke up. So I guess that was it. I was devastated. I was quite enjoying the city of vegetables, with its cheese paths that can be eaten with burger sauce and lettuce. The brush spots are a must. Every time I walk somewhere, I daydream about this adventure.
My name is Nia, and I wrote the story Calling It Home from
Wonderful.
the 10 to 12 winners.
Take it away.
It was the 14th of November, 2019, and after weeks of packing, complaints, and tears, Yani and her family were moving to Australia. Yani looked back at the airport gates. They were almost at the front of the check-in line. In a matter of minutes, all her friends would be gone. Everything would be gone. Every time they traveled, they came back soon. This time, who knew when they would come back? She blinked out the tears in her eyes as they stepped past the baggage check-in. After a long day, they were boarding the plane, embarking for Australia. Yani felt horrible. Her world was shattering into uncollectible pieces. After 4 movies, 3 games, and 6 hours of sleep, they reached Sydney. When they stepped off the airport, Yani could feel the change in the air. As the car drove to their friend's house, Yani gazed in amazement at the wonderful sights passing by. Settling in a new city was tough. Yani and her parents were struggling. They had to rent a house, get jobs, and Yani had to go to a new school. After a few months of staying in their friend's house, they finally rented one of their own. Yani was about to start school, but when she did, she despised it. She missed her classmates from her previous school and was lonely in a way she'd never been. As she struggled to fit in, the world around her was changing. A global pandemic, COVID-19, had taken over the world and had made its way to Australia. People were falling sick, and everyone was told to stay home for their own safety. But for Yani, COVID proved to be a blessing in disguise. It gave her the time to learn the ropes of this new life. And when she went back to school, she felt more confident and started to fit in. But before she could settle in, COVID was back. The soccer club she joined when she first moved to Sydney had closed, and so had school. Her parents had always told Yani that in every adversity lies an opportunity. She put in her 100% into home learning and backyard soccer training. Her perseverance paid off, with her starting to get better at her studies as well as soccer. The beginning of year 5 saw the end of COVID. Back at school, Yani had the best teacher in the world, someone who was a true mentor and boosted her morale and confidence to try on more challenges. She was finally a senior now, trying out for school captain and the debating team. Before she knew it, the year passed quickly, and there she was, standing in front of the school, about to give her school captain speech. Yani couldn't believe that not long ago, she was trying to find her feet and settle in this new city, Sydney. And now, it was no longer the other city. It was home. Thank you.
I'm Walter Pender.
Walter, congratulations, Walter. I'll just make sure the mic's at the right level. And what's the name of your piece?
The Other City.
The Other City. Fantastic. All right, I'll let you read it for us.
Leaving the lifeless tree, long-lasting hope filled the wind. But a loser I was not, to success I was pinned. Longing for freedom, flying through the air. As I advanced to the ground, I was filled with despair. Other linnets leaping through the breeze, giving hope I may truly succeed. Tweeting a light-hearted, melodious tune as I fell through the moonlit sky like an airless balloon. The birds leap through the lively horizon. Like God's heavenly hand, I was grabbed and began to rise. It dropped me on the floor near the shore, as I wonder if it knew how much I adored its tuneful roar. As I rose to this new place, a new home, I so badly wanted to roam. Hope and dreams taken from the shelf, put and restored into myself. I wandered around this stunning place. It was truly filled with grace. The sun rose and energized the land. I couldn't believe I witnessed it firsthand. I couldn't believe what I could see. Massive buildings towering way above, with countless people rushing about. But there I saw it, a new sanctuary, a magnificent, beautiful tree. I climbed to the top
and saw a lovely little bird gazing over at me.
Hi, I'm Sophia.
I'll just adjust that for you, Sophia. There we
My
go.
poem is called Onward.
Poem, wonderful. I'll leave you to it.
A meek peak of light in the night, a continuous line, everlasting, the horizon. A glow ever so softly grows. Clearer now, shapes form. Towers amidst the showers of the storm. The stark outline is the only entity that sparks my attention. The other city. Lightning strikes, bright, a fork of white, flashing to crash my vision. Onward. I continue with no regrets, leaving behind the outdated, sophisticated, overweighted, frustrated brains of governments who refuse to change. Leaving behind the uninspired liars who controlled the cities of yesterday. Leaving behind the desperate chase for money, the nasty jokes that lack the funny, the images of beauty that society fulfills the duty of creating, the late hopeless nights, the failure to meet the heights of expectations set on our lives. I say goodbye. Onward. The other city, the new one. Closer now, nearly there. A second chance, a reset. Onward. No more pain. All that remains in my veins is hope. The hope drives me onward. Onward into the new chances. Onward into the new life. I am no longer in the other city. This is the city, my city.
My name's Jade.
Jade, and what's the name of your piece, Jade?
The other city.
We've had a few of those. Is it a poem or a short story?
Short story.
Wonderful. I'll let you take it away. Thank you.
This was it, my grandest show of the year. A sprawling city of green stood in front of me, one I had performed in many times, but this time all eyes were on me. Yet that only made me more eager to start. My fans were waiting for me after all. They campaigned hard for this show to happen, an end-of-year celebration with the year's biggest star. Watering the plant-run houses instead of the usual drones was what the entire city wanted, so the council had to relent. My eyes roamed over what I had to work with, the vast, bottomless sea of blue-green, lit up by the light of the setting sun, simply a bigger pool to control. I felt the wind around my body and grabbed it with that magical part of my mind, wrapping its swirling force around my legs where it eagerly latched on and launched me into the air with my mental command. Gracefully flying through the air, the world blurred around me, and all I could see was the sparkle of the sun, the water, and the sand. Now for the real thing. I took the wind and hurled it into the waters below, sending a perfectly curved splash of water up to me. Gripping the water now, I made it dance with me, up and down, again and again. Then I plunged into the water, immersing myself in the cool, soothing touch of the sea. The world was quiet here, peaceful. And when I emerged, the warm sun embraced me with it in its rays, always making me shine like an angel, as one of my fans described. I threw a spiral of seawater up into the air and channeled my energy into it to take every last particle of soil and algae away. Then I wove the crystal clear water through all the plants in the city and released it. The splash of water echoed clearly throughout the city, which seemed to hold its breath. Then a loud cheer erupted, my fans, wearing their customary aqua green and orange shirts and waving their banners. Of course, their love for me was endless, and I cherished every moment of it. The crowd roared once again and stood for a standing ovation. They told me that they loved me over and over again as I descended onto the... What are you doing? My feet met thin carpet. Layla? A pause. Then a whisper. Oh, not again. Oh, my mum. I slowly moved back from the window, my eyes focusing on the city outside. A rattling sound came from the doorknob. Layla, unlock the door, now. A car honked loudly in front of the house, and I turned away from the city outside, filled with the identical white skyscrapers separated only by slivers of cloudy sky. The other city I never belonged in.
I'm Ria. Don't Take Me Home. The fair and lovely lotion that once caressed my face, my eyes, my lips. Entangling my tan-struck skin in the warmth of its purity, I have learned to find hope in its whitening fingertips, because while Lady Gaga's mama told her, we are all born superstars, mine told me, in our country, it's mostly the light-skinned ones. That is, if they include women. And the multicultural community Australia speaks of snatches the half-cooked rice grains from Year 2 me's lunchbox, weaving a chain of silent defeat between me and my ancestors, with every kid who made fun of the way I talked, the way my food smelled, tugging just a little harder on that chain. Now, I sometimes look at my wrists, tracing my fingers along where that chain used to be. The purple and blue bruising still poisons the sea of my skin, the same way 7 years later I still look around in embarrassment before opening my smelly lunch, wary of that chain again. Perhaps it's about time I return home, where yet another chain that has suffocated my sisters for generations binds our fingers even tighter to the steel keys we have long clutched in our dainty palms. On the way home from the supermarket, a sigh of gratitude that escapes our lips when we reach home. When we look down at our hands and all we see is the yellow draining of blood from our skin and the bruises from holding the keys so tightly, instead of a man's hand dragging us along to God knows where, seeking the safety in a clump of metal that society failed and still fails to give us. Silent solidarity has been weaved in the first 2 letters of female, the 2 letters F and E that excuse a man's actions towards a woman, that she is an object, if they appear next to male on her birth certificate, and give men the right to use her for his gratification and dispose of her once she becomes useless. Our own sisters remind each other that her will never have the same impact as him. And our grandmother's silver medals have been passed down to us for a reason, befitting us like chokers rather than necklaces, making sure we never forget the disadvantage we face as the weaker gender, that no amount of beauty products or expensive dresses and heels, no amount of skin whitening products will change the fact that we aren't perfect, and because as a woman, beautiful equals perfect, we are not beautiful. Our sisters, our mothers, our grandmothers have been taught from the 18th century, when the word misogyny was added to the Oxford Dictionary, that men will be men. 200 years later, we will find comfort in that yellow that appears on our hands when we latch onto our ideals of extreme perfectionism, too afraid to let go of the very thing that segregates us from a world of equality. Because if we're backpedaling every time we push forward, it's about time we take a look at the gears.
Matilda. Matilda, and what's the name of your piece today, Matilda?
Called Where I'm From.
Where you're from, all right. Please take it away.
I am from secrets, from whispers said behind closed doors. I am from silence when screaming is the better option. Big, black silence, deafening silence. I am from telling everyone, yeah, everything's great at home, when everything is really falling apart. I am from shape-shifting, from becoming one thing when I step out of my door to becoming something else the moment I step back inside. I am from the sins of my grandparents passed down to the sins of my mother, with constant fear that I'll be next in line. I am from hiding the smog behind bright smiles. I am from painting over the cracks instead of gluing them together. I am from the quiet moments shared with my sister, from the days spent alone in each other's company, with no one else but the gum trees to hear our breathing. It is from these moments, small, bright silence, when I finally find where I am truly from. I am from every city.
Darcy.
Darcy, and what's the name of your piece, Darcy?
The Fool's Tale.
Wonderful, I'll let you take it away.
Before I start, everyone else had a deep meaning to theirs. I just wrote a fantasy thing, which is just kind of awkward now.
No, we love a good genre story, thank you.
I opened the door to the king on his deathbed. His breathing was very shallow, his face was sunken and as pale as snow. I was definitely his final visitor. He opened his eyes a sliver to greet me, and surprise filled them. I was quite a sight, in a long black cloak and a cowl that cast an impenetrable shadow onto my face. He took a deeper breath and whispered, "Hello again. Hello again, old king. Tales of your undertaking have reached my distant land. Are they true? Did you try to kill death?" My curiosity had gotten the better of me, although, by the state of him, a quick approach may be best. "You wish to hear of my undertaking?" the king replied pensively. "That mission was my gracious folly. I was a fool. You wish to hear the fool's tale from the mouth of the fool?" His voice was raspy and condemning his actions, and condemning me for asking. "Grief renders everyone foolish, but you are no fool, good king," I replied. He chuckled a little at this. "I will tell you my tale on one condition. Spread it. Hopefully it will deter someone from my path." I agreed, so he started. 42 years ago, my daughter was stolen from me by a horrible illness, and by her bed was him, Death. He stole her from me, just like he had stolen her mother in childbirth. That day I vowed I would end Death's reign and make a new kingdom, a new city without him. He paused for a minute, gathering his strength. That delusion of the other city was fueled by grief to make a fire of folly. For 40 years, all I focused on was finding Death, on obtaining my revenge for my grief, on building the greatest kingdom. I was so convinced that destroying Death would transform my city into a place of life and happiness, where daughters wouldn't be stolen away from their parents. A singular tear rolled down his cheek. He had to fight the grief and pain. He was fighting to cling to life. But consumed by my delusion, I let what I had slip away into the hands of my snake of an advisor, Dallard. He was greedy and sly, and while I dreamt of my city as a forever place of life and joy, he saw the city only as a place to fulfill his eternal lust for wealth. In his hands my city was decimated, and when I awoke from my dream, I found a nightmare, my city in utter ruin. My folly was my downfall, foolishness will be my legacy. And with that exclamation, he closed his eyes. His shallow breathing stopped. His pulse stood still. I looked at him with sadness and pity for a while, until I eventually said, "Do not chase Death, because I cannot be found, for I live in the other city, my black bastion, the castle of Death."
It's called Chicken Shop.
I remember Chicken Shop. Wonderful. All right, so nice and close to the microphone, and I'll let you take us away.
A 2-bedroom apartment, a far cry from the 5-bedroom mansions they were born into. They found themselves alone together for the very first time in their lives. Under their care was Aya and I. Maybe that's the first time they realised, in between the screams of us tearing each other apart, that they hadn't stopped to think if they liked each other at heart. A love match sparked by the honour that it had been good on paper, resolved by the constellations in the sky that it would lead them both to a sufficient life. Stranded on foreign carpet, they would now have to create a new life between them, worlds apart, the overwhelming realisation they'd flown so far, from the comfort of their family homes to build a new life for us, away from war and civil unrest. They blessed every inch of that 2-bedroom apartment for 4, praying our futures would be worth the sacrifice they'd come to know. Our bellies rumbled, signalling the morning waft rise from the kitchen shop below. Breakfast was served on the carpet floor, legs crossed, staples. My mother's rice and curry, once the source of our torment, now the talk of the town. She hand-fed me until I was taught how to eat with my fingers without spilling a drop. I am my father's daughter, never one to colour between the lines. There was always rice painted on the floor, our home void of knives and forks. In amongst the morning hustle, my father was nowhere to be seen. He had embarked to the chip factory while I was fast asleep. My mother's eyes were always drawn. She was here again going it alone. Her hair was frazzled as she tried to tame my own. The scent of spices from breakfast still heavy on the hands that brushed out my curly locks. She always smelt like home, until I forgot where home was. I wanted my hair wild and free, just as I was bred to be. She soldiered through my protests and screams to tame my hair behind my ears. Somehow we had to belong. She told me so. So I believed it to be true, shape-shifted to fit within the rules, until all the curly traces of me were groomed. After a morning of epic failures and triumphs, battles and tantrums, we were ready to regroup. Another brave face summoned across my mother's gaunt face, ashamed to be chaperoned to school. She was designated to watch on top of that chicken shop, determined to see us through. A life she couldn't fathom would lead us to. Thank
you. My name is Kennedy Estefan. My entry won the Bankstown category,
Yep,
18
wonderful.
plus. I know this can come as a shock to many, but I am over 18. Actually, I'm a few multiples of 18. 3 point, never mind.
Well, we still had to card you at the door. It's all right.
Yeah, there you go.
And what was the name of your piece?
It's called From High Above. Yeah.
Wonderful. Please read it for us.
In red fez and embroidered silk vests, reminiscent of Ottoman times, 2 men at a food stall cheer and flex imaginary muscles at their audience as they raise a large tray of freshly baked dessert and display it angled up and in slow turn as proud parents might a newborn. While at another stall across the street, also set up for the occasion, also manned by 2 men, camel burgers flip and sizzle on hot plates, belching smoke as if from mini volcanoes and blurring nearby faces, and, along with them, a large stuffed camel toy dangling from the roof like a signpost. These are popular stands. Long queues are already in place, but save for the few more figures joining them, the bulk of the crowd does not linger. Merely presses on up and down the street to check out more attractions, take in all the sights and sounds and scents of the place, soak it all in. Ramadan nights is in full swing tonight. Howden Street, Lakemba, is a sparkling stretch illuminated with all kinds of light and abuzz with activity like the hub of another city. Hundreds of people are about. They have flocked in here to celebrate, catch up with friends, or merely experience a suburban food bazaar with its smorgasbord of cuisines, its medley of languages and accents, its spectrum of faces and complexions and attires, constantly slipping in and out of sight as if in a game of hide and seek. The bearded and the clean-shaven, the veiled and the peroxide blonde, those in thobes or in jeans, you see them all as you drift some more, following a human tide that converges here, diverges there, but never quite stops. Past the hopeful expressions of stallholders and the watchful gazes of cops and paramedics, you go. Past more queues on the sides waiting to be served, and the man with the ringing bell jovially guiding them into the right lane. Kebabs here, kenafi there. Past the stall with the religious merchandise playing the recorded voice of a muezzin in prayer, and the church tent further beyond, introducing passers-by to Jesus. Past traffic lights constantly on green despite diverted traffic and the swarm of bodies on the street, to the footpath across, up along its continuum of stalls, and back to the small pub where the fellow standing outside continues to monitor the masses with a bemused expression and another lit cigarette in hand. Different mindsets and perspectives, a mosaic of faiths and philosophies on display tonight. Numerous differences from this angle, perplexing, almost disconcerting. But then you see the moon beaming indiscriminately at them all, and you zoom out and up for a higher perspective. This is when you see the oneness behind it all. Same hopes, insecurities, fears, needs. Above all, that same quest for a meaning to life, even when all they do for now is drift up and down that street again, forever searching. Thank you.
My name's Joanne Macias. Hello, Joanne. And what's the name of your title? The title of your story today.
So it's called The Call of the Whistle, and it was a poem that I wrote in relation to time in Vancouver.
Wonderful. Oh, please share it with us.
The distant echo of the whistle rings through the city like clockwork, on time, every time. It draws you in and captures you. A city of adventure, climbing treetops, crossing rivers. There is no match to the calm of the whistle. The sun beams down on the city, bright lights of the day, casting harsh shadows behind. The contrast of light and shade, almost like the city itself. The hustle bustle of day to day, stopped dead in its tracks. Nature in all its glory, hidden in little pockets of the city, washing my worries away.
My name is C.R. Masters.
Ah, yes, pen name. Yes, very good. And what is the name of your story?
My piece is called Jaded.
Jaded, I remember Jaded.
It's a non-fiction piece. I grew up in Macquarie Fields, and this piece was about the days of the Macquarie Fields riots and how it changed my perception of my home suburb.
Very good. Oh, well, please let us have it.
The police helicopter hovered over my head. The vibrations so fierce they shook my bed and threatened to shatter the window beside me. It had been a trying day. A sense of unease permeated the air. News vans and reporters clogged the main streets, making it difficult to dodge the detritus left behind by raging riders the night before. I raised my hands to cover my ears, but nothing could drown out the mechanical drone. My head started to beat in time with the sound of the blades. The glow-in-the-dark stars on my bedroom ceiling flickered and dimmed. I was 10 years old when I begged my parents to buy them. I had spent the afternoon sticking them to the ceiling, over my bed, jumping to reach, creating a constellation I would spend many years studying. I remember running outside when I was finished, excited to tell my friends about the new addition to my room. Back then, this place was an adventure. I would return home from school, drop my bag, grab my bike and head out to explore. I would ride my bike as fast as I could around the concrete path and launch myself off onto the clay track, imagining I was a professional BMX rider. We would go for bushwalks in the scrub behind the Housing Commission townhouses, hike up to Simo's beach to splash in the water, and stroll down to the top shops for fish and chips. We spent weeks in school preparing for a parade down Rosewood Drive to celebrate the council completing maintenance. Back then, Macquarie Fields was just home. Now it was the site of a horrendous police chase and car crash. Now it was the Housing Commission ghetto turned violent. Now we were the perfect example of why Housing Commission doesn't work. Now the street I had proudly paraded down all those years ago was a site of a long and violent standoff between police and a group of miscreants. I had spent the day at university fending off the curious questions and judging stares of those who knew where I lived. The constant barrage of negative news reports and headlines had changed the way they thought of me and my home. Macquarie Fields was never perfect. I'd spent my entire life in this suburb. I'd seen the flaws firsthand. The rundown houses, the drug dealer on the corner, the children enjoying their brand new charity-donated bikes on Christmas morning before their parents returned them for money the next day. Before all this, they were just a part of the minutiae of the suburb. This night, lying in bed cursing those who had tarred us all with the same brush, I found myself genuinely hating this place for the first time in my life. The streets were no longer the familiar stomping ground of my youth. They were different now, alien. It was a place where I did not belong. This was no longer my home.
My name is Margot. I'm from the Hawkesbury.
Wonderful, thank you, Margot. And what's the name of your piece today?
The Old City.
The Old City, wonderful. I would love to hear it.
It's about the death of my father. I hope I get through it because I heard about the death of two friends yesterday. So I'm a bit of an emotional mess, but we'll see how we go. The Old City. Moments of teenage conflict with Dad explode in my adult mind. You don't win by yelling the loudest, he yells back. You don't respect me. You treat me like the enemy. You are. You're damaged by the war. What? Are you a psychiatrist now? No surrender. I left for Sydney. Now my father, the school librarian, is in a beige casket in the shelves I made out of cypress floorboards. I enclosed some of the sections with recycled cabinet doors of rich red cedar, but he's out in the open, making his presence felt. He wasn't a beige personality. Despite nerves that were strung up on the Russian front, he was respected by the Adelaide Bolts. The urn's been there for a year or 2 or 3. He must be moved from my Blue Mountains house to his final resting place, and it must be done soon. The years flash back to the shift in relations. I'm visiting my parents, and we're on a day trip. We've ended up on Hindmarsh Island in a modern, double-gabled tavern with a functional, laminated decor. It's afternoon, and the place is basically empty. We sit outside on the wraparound veranda. Below, a lush green lawn slopes down to the water. Nothing is lofty or aspirational in this landscape. The distant hills are low and spreading. The sky and water form pastoral stripes. It's a calming and peaceful composition. We watch a pelican flap and glide above the placid water, his long beak staunchly parallel to it. Then, using his feet like water skis, he skids to a landing. Visibly relaxing, he settles and tucks his wings neatly away. Our coffees arrive. I haven't achieved much here, says Dad, reflecting on his life in the new country. Maybe I should have changed the K in Jacobson to a C. All I can say is, I like the K. Nothing about the impact of his story on me. The police commissioner's boy, playing with boats on the river in Ruckvera, school ducks, university studies, dreams sunk by World War II, which ultimately washed him up on Australian shores. A synopsis that describes nothing, but he's something, still here, scarred, but always abundantly larger than life, sorry. Dad's talking about death, his. I'd like my ashes to be scattered in Estonia. I don't suppose you'd do it. The U is rather jarring in the limpid air, aggressive, to mask the vulnerability. I turn towards him, seeing right through it to the olive branch. A truce, travel, an opportunity for the second difficult daughter to accept responsibility within the family. I look him straight in the eye. I want him to know I understand. This is a job of grave importance. Yes, I'll do it. So I take his urn to the old city, where his father had been important, where Jacobson with a K wasn't weird, where the buskers play violins and cellos, and choirs of men sing in taverns. That's it. Apologise.
And what's the name of your piece?
Forgetting to worry.
Forgetting to worry. All right, after you. Thank you.
Forgetting to worry. I'm scared that I may forget to worry. Worry about the $72,000 bill they're talking about. Worried, where will they get the money from? Do we have money? How long was I here? Isn't that corner house on the Lane Street, embowered in the golden wattle, my home? Yes, I'm a migrant with dreams and love, and that's the place I call home. The black patterned tiles in the balcony, the stained carpet in the living room. Oh. The black patterned tiles in the balcony, the stained carpet in the living room. Fragrance of sandalwood incense sticks lingering in my home, but I can't remember anything more. Beep, beep, beep. Can you give him a towel bath? Beep, beep, beep. Records is vital. Beep, beep, beep. Not a good response to the surgery. I mastered the art of listening to voices in between beeps. My ears are filled with long beeps every 20 minutes and a short one every 5 seconds, boldly challenging the silence in the room. How many machines are around me? Guess it's night. Westmead Hospital, in the heart of Western Sydney, richly populated with assorted sounds, yet felt deserted in this crowded, solitary world. Ma, let me inject this feed in his tube, said my son. Should be morning. Does this tube go right into my stomach? My daughter. Will it hurt Dad? Will he ever eat with his mouth? Ma, the social worker is here. Let's talk about the bills, he said. He's explaining our insurance policies. Says it can cover if it was an accident and cannot cover if it's a disease. Did I fall or how did I end up here? The troubled discussions left me in sheer torment. How is he responding to the treatment? My wife dreads the question to the doctor. A deep male voice gently says, he has progressive supranuclear palsy, PSP. Eventually he will lose his sight, ability to swallow, will stop moving his limbs and become rigid. He coughs and continues. Subcortical dementia. He will forget his present and sometimes past, slow processing and declined cognition. Felt my life slip through my fingers, horrid picture of my ravaged home in sight. Felt a storm brewing in my chest. I wished to forget certain memories that haunt me, but today, the thought of losing my memories is absolutely petrifying. My wife is crushed and can feel her devastated stare. Her strained voice begs for a remedy. I want to reach her shoulders and say, I'm here for you, but no matter how hard I try, I can't utter a word or lift my arm. How cursed am I? Just let me open my eyes. Let me talk for one last time. I'll try to think and get the bills and the future sorted. Just one chance. I'll let them know where to find support. I don't need this long life cursed with forgetfulness. Pull me out of these life supporting machines. Let me go. I don't want you to remember me like this. Let me go before I forget how I lived my life. Did I fall or was I sick? Solve this mystery before I forget.
And I think the reason this anthology is so special is because we can contrast the wonderfully personal and the genre stories and everything. And we are celebrating the best works from every LGA. So congratulations, everyone. Congratulations again. Thank you.